Hello and welcome back. My name is Jared and this is a collective reading for my collective here. I have 10 subscribers now, so that's really cool. If you're not into tarot readings, just watch this for fun. You might find it's eerily accurate. So, first up we have the Three of Cups. And what I see this as is we were talking about projects or perhaps some sort of partnership in the last couple of readings. And this is that Three of Cups. Of course, it's Mercury Retrograde, and Mercury Retrograde wouldn't Mercury Retrograde if something didn't go wrong, right? Well, up next we have the something that goes wrong. We have the Six of Swords. Now, the definition on this card is move on from problems and be mindful what you take. And I believe that someone was trying to be mindful and move on from what they perceived to be a problem, but this perception of it being a problem actually led to a tower moment that they didn't suspect. Because they have their back turned on the situation. They didn't realize the situation was actually a Three of Cups. Instead, it led to the Tower. And always expect the unexpected. If that isn't Mercury Retrograde to a T, I don't know what is. But fortunately, this Tower moment, even as it might seem right now, is going to lead to a King of Swords moment. A very decisive moment when a decision is made. But this decision is going to consider all sides of the matter. It's going to consider the fact that maybe, just perhaps, it was Mercury Retrograde that was involved in a lot of this, and that perhaps whatever was done in a Six of Swords type of attitude in terms of, and this is the best example I can give, and this is one that has come up in terms of I guess illustrating the point that I'm trying to make best is, let's say we have a worker, and this worker has gone from job to job to job. Let's say they're within the IT field. Let's just use that for example. And this worker has gone from job to job to job, feeling undervalued, underpaid, like the whipping boy, like the guy they get to do all the dirty work while everyone else sits around. We've all been there, and if you have been there, you're better than most of the people that you work with, and kudos to you. You're gonna find your tribe. All right, I'm telling you that. So, in that example, someone could go into a new workplace. Everything is great, and then because things have been in such a way where they have been essentially abused in the workplace before and used in the workplace before, they're not necessarily seeing this as them getting the work because they're the only one that they can handle it, but they're getting the work because they think that they're being overloaded again with a bunch of stuff that people don't want to do, not realizing that everyone in their job is working just as hard as they are. And unfortunately, in those cases, someone, and I've had this happen in different aspects of my life, where it can actually be a good situation, and you sit there and think, oh, this horrible thing's happening again, because something seems like it under the surface, but it's really not that at all. And so that worker, for instance, might think, oh, okay, well, I'm being treated like this again for the 10th time that I've tried to work in one of these places, and that leads to them feeling like this, like they want to, as the definition says here, transition, exit, move beyond, that sort of thing. But what's interesting about this reading is I actually got 4 Moonology cards, and above the Three of Cups I have believe in the impossible. And I think that's a belief we need to take with us throughout this entire reading, despite this Tower moment. And this is a blue moon. And a blue moon is a very rare moon. It's the, I think, the 3rd full moon in a particular season. So, it's definitely rare energy. And I would say that definitely crowns the Three of Cups in this instance. Now, what's interesting about this Six of Swords, and I think this Moonology card really highlights the shadow aspect of what the Six of Swords brought up, and that is, what do you need to release? And that's the Waning Moon. I'm not going to read the definition of this card because I don't think it's necessary. And I really think the release, the question there, is really what led up to the Six of Swords. This way of thinking that led this worker in the example that we have to think that they were undervalued, when the case was everybody was so working so hard. In that case, they really didn't see what was going on beneath the surface with that person. And above the tower, crowning it, we have work through your fears, new moon in Scorpio. Now, what's interesting is what can lead to a tower moment are our fears. And the definition for this card is one that I wanted to really read. So I'm going to go ahead and read it here. It's additional meaning for this card. This card is time to let go of a grudge you're holding, move on from a journey, stop being obsessive. Could it be you're being paranoid, relating back to the worker we highlighted in that example? Make an investment, and the teaching is what I think that everyone that's watching this reading needs to hear, especially if they've had a tower moment. Scorpio is the sign of death and rebirth, magic and shamans. Its energy is a little dark, occult, even scary. Not all of us like to face the shadow, but Scorpio demands it. In fact, it's through working through your dark side that you can get to the light. The new moon in Scorpio and the appearance of this card at any other time suggests you need to do that now. And that's what the tower is demanding of the worker in that example, is highlighting their own fear of being undervalued and then having to face that by essentially walking out of the job. And that can happen. I see comments on YouTube about that all the time, and it's really heartbreaking to see people undervalued, and having worked in a job where that happened to me, I completely understand that. And I can understand how that would lead to a tower moment as well, especially in a group dynamic, or perhaps in a relationship dynamic where both parties are on edge, or even in a personal dynamic where you're sort of sorting through your own issues. So, crowning the King of Swords, we have conclusions are within reach, full moon eclipse. So this thing, the shadow, is going to definitely play a part in the decision that this king, whatever role that is in terms of where you find yourself in this reading. You might be the King of Swords. You might have to deal with the King of Swords in this case. I'm just simply saying that the conclusions will be within reach. And I also see this conclusion not necessarily happening right away, but happening within a certain amount of time, say about a week, 2 weeks, something relating to the project that we might be referring to, however that fits with you. So, those being the Moonology cards, we have some follow-up cards, which, as I said, I think the Moonology cards sort of highlight the shadow aspect, and highlighting the other aspects of it, some that may not necessarily be so visible within that shadow. We have the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. So I'm going to read the events that sort of tie to these cards, and I think that they really do highlight some of these things that are going on within the tarot as well. So below and in front of the Three of Cups, we have the Enthusiasm card. Now this card, its definition is, for the events, splendid opportunities, contact from abroad, the prospect of long-distance travel, a new philosophy, and optimism about a new project. And that optimism can sometimes lead to the second Oracle of the Radiant Sun card, which is below the Three of Cups and between the Six of Swords, which is restlessness. And the interesting thing about this restlessness card is that it really highlights something that I think can lead to a Six of Swords moment. And the definition that I have here, in the event, is a big argument, or let's see here. I would say a big argument, but in this case, it could be an argument with yourself, an argument with a coworker, or just the general restlessness of thinking about things in such a way where they used to be, like that worker that we highlighted, that can lead to them feeling like, oh, okay, well, I'm being undervalued here, I'm leaving. But again, it's just one of those things where I think that the definition of restlessness really is the restlessness of the mind, and that's what can really lead to that kind of conclusion that ultimately leads to the Tower moment. So, below the Six of Swords, and between the Tower, below it as well, is the Idealism card. And what's interesting about the event that this highlights is, let's see here, events, eccentric behavior, an original idea or invention, involvement in an intention-seeking act, or sudden upset. And that's where that restlessness can lead to that sudden upset, that sort of thinking that, oh, I'm not being valued, and then, abruptly wanting to leave. Lateral thinking can also lead to this as well, where you're not thinking in different ways that can lead you to a different conclusion. You're just thinking one way, is essentially what I mean by that. And that's below the Tower. Now, below the Tower and the King of Swords, we have the card Patience, which is going to be necessary to come to a reasonable conclusion that considers all sides with the King of Swords. Now, the event here is acting as a secretary for social or self-help group, reorganizing the methods and systems of an organization, which is going to happen, either within yourself, within a couple of people working together, even a group dynamic, if you're going to consider all sides. So patience is going to be key in all of this. And I think the other card that's also below and sort of encapping the King of Swords also highlights that, and that is the Negotiation card. It is, and the events are learning a language for a specific project, taking the chair at a meeting, which can happen if you are working on a group project, being the spokesperson for someone unjustly accused, negotiating a business deal, which is sort of how I see it, and marriage guidance. So again, if you're having a Tower moment within a marriage, that can fall under that. Tower moment within a group dynamic can definitely fall under that. And I'll have to show this card a certain way because the woman is not wearing a top, and she is drawn well enough that I don't think YouTube would care for that. But what I see is someone that is bridging the gap between the night and the day, and sort of that liminal space where we can find ourselves lost in feeling certain things, and almost a restlessness, to go back to that card. But I think the negotiation is going to require patience and a decisive action, because once we see these conclusions, they'll become within reach. And it may not be something that we see the conclusion to this particular Tower moment straight away. It might be something that takes some time with some interpersonal introspection. Perhaps we're going to have to hear all sides if it's a group dynamic, or perhaps if it's a couple, we're going to have to hear both sides and then sort of negotiate with patience, and then take that decisive action the way that the King of Swords would, because swords are obviously in the realm of the mind. And I see this as having two sword cards as definitely being something mental, in terms of what led to the Tower, because both of those sword cards are sort of sandwiching that Tower. So I don't necessarily see the conclusion being a bad thing for parties involved. In fact, I see it kind of working out. But we're going to have to get to that in another reading, and I will follow that up here shortly, within a day or two. I have a couple other video ideas that I'm going to try and get out before then, but I will definitely follow up this reading because I want to see what the conclusion is to all of this. So if you like this reading, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, and check back in a few days, because I will have a conclusion to this as to what is the decision from the King of Swords, or maybe what we can look forward to in that decision. Maybe kind of get an idea of the different conclusions that we can have. Maybe have 4 different cards represent the different conclusions. So we'll see about that. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you like me reading the definitions. Like I said, as I begin to have more time to do that, I'll try and turn to that more often, as I think it can be fitting to the situation, especially with these readings. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope this helped you in some way. And as I said before, if it did, make sure to comment down below and let me know what aspect you think helped you. Until next time, thank you.